Here we go. Few orbits go by and we pick up pocket kings again. We raise to 15. +1 calls, small blind calls, and now the big blind looks like he wants to get a little feisty. He just ships in his whole stack for 400. This video was created for entertainment purposes only. By no means am I a professional poker player. The following video is not intended to teach nor train, but rather to provide a look into my journey. Please gamble at your own risk. Another day, another dollar. Yes, we get pocket kings 3 times, and yes, it's an all-in pot all 3 times. It's exciting and you don't want to miss it. We're back at Grayton, starting off at the 113 and eventually making our way back to the 235 again. There's a long list, so hopefully we'll get a seat in the bigger games soon. I buy in for the max, which is 500, and the first notable hand we pick up is 8-6 of clubs on the button. There's 1 limper and we over limp just to get our feet wet. I'm not trying to start off super aggressive here. It gets to the small blind and he raises to 18. The initial limper calls and I want to get involved as well, so I throw in the 18. 3 ways to a flop of king 8-6 rainbow. Really good flop for us as we have bottom 2 pair. The pre-flop raiser leads out for 20 and the limper calls. I have a feeling one of these guys has a king and the other one could be calling light to maybe catch up. Our hand is pretty vulnerable here and we want to get the money in now. The PFR has about 120 behind and the limper has about 260 behind. There are a lot of bad turn cards that allow them to catch up with 2 pair, like all paint cards or even another king would be bad. Even a scare card, like a 9, a 7, or a 5, that would kill our action. So we raise to 110. Unfortunately, they both fold, but it's nice to start off a session in the positive. This is going to be the first out of 3 times we pick up kings, and this hand is going to be a part of the mystery hand. I'm going to go over the progressions of this hand while keeping the opponent's hand concealed, and you type in the comments below what you think our opponent has. We'll revisit this hand later in the video and show what he had. There are 2 limpers and we raise to 16, small blind calls, hijack calls. We're going 3 ways to a flop of queen 10 deuce rainbow. Pretty good flop for us. They both play in flow and check it to us, and we place a C bet of 45, small blind calls, and hijack folds. Our bet did exactly what we wanted it to do, and it thinned the field to get some value out of our overpair. The dealer puts out a turn card, which is the Jack of Spades. Kind of a scary card, but doubtful he has ace king for the straight because he would have most likely re-raised us pre-flop. Small blind checks once again, and I look at his stack and he has only about 80 left. Let's get it all in with him. We have an overpair, and even if we're behind, we still have plenty of outs with our open-ended straight draw and possibly a bigger 2-pair draw. We ship it in and he makes the call. River is a blank. It's a deuce of hearts. I say kings, letting him know we have pocket kings. What does he show? A, pocket 10s, B, king jack, C, pocket deuces, or D, queen jack. Put your guesses in the comments below and let's see if you can put them on a hand. Here we go. Few orbits go by and we pick up pocket kings again. This time we're under the gun and we raise to 15. +1 calls, small blind calls, and now the big blind looks like he wants to get a little feisty. He says something and I couldn't really hear him because of the mask and also the plexiglass divider, but it must have been something good because he just ships in his whole stack for 400, like a super overbet. I think he just wanted to push around the table because he made this same exact play of the hand before. There's no way I'm folding here, so I make the call. Everybody bows out and we're going heads up to a full run out. The flop is king 3-6 with 2 diamonds, an amazing flop for our hand. Turn is the 8 of clubs, and I just straight up tell him I have top set. River is the 4 of spades, and I table my hand. No need to make him show his hand. I don't think he would want to show anyways. He says good hand, and we take this pot down. Still waiting for a 2-3-5 seat to open up. And one of the main and major mistakes, at least in my opinion, most low stakes cash games players make will be the open limping. And that's exactly what this guy does under the gun. So when it gets folded to us, of course we're going to be punishing him for that. We have 10-8 of clubs in the cutoff and we raise to 12. It gets folded back to the under the gun limper and he still wants to play, so he makes the call. We're going heads up to a flop of 10-9-3 with a couple of hearts. Flopping top pair with a backdoor straight draw is a pretty good hand to me. He checks and we're going to try to find out where we're at in this hand. We bet 15. He makes the call. The turn is an even better card for us as the dealer puts out the 8 of clubs. This gives us 2 pair, and now if he has any 10 with a bigger kicker, we just found a card that puts us ahead. The 8 also brings in the obvious open-ended straight with Queen Jack, and it also brings in a backdoor club draw. With this said, we're going to need to charge him to see the next card, and it's not going to be cheap. We fire out a bet of 45, he ponders for a few seconds, and then sends his cards into the muck. Feeling pretty good at the moment, winning most of the hands that we've been playing, and in this hand there's one limper and the cutoff raises to 15. It folds to us in the small blind and we look down at pocket nines. We make the call, big blind calls, and the limper makes the call as well. We're going multi-way to this flop, which is Jack 10-8 with 2 diamonds. The flop is decent, but definitely not the best. We have an open-ended straight draw, but we're out of position with 3 players behind. The play here is to check, and that's exactly what we do. It gets checked to the cutoff, and he bets 20. With a good draw, we're going to be making this call, so we put in the 20, and all of the other players fold. So we're going heads up to a turn, and it's the 7 of diamonds. It's a good card and a bad card. We hit our straight, but it also brings in the front door flush. We actually check this turn card, but I think the best play here is to lead. The reason being, if you check, he's probably going to be checking back the majority of the time. It's going to be hard for him to represent the straight, being the pre-flop raiser. He shouldn't have too many nines in his hand. And if he has some value hands like ace jack, king jack, queen jack, or even overpairs, he's going to be checking back for pot control. He ends up doing exactly what he should be doing, and that is checking back. The river peels off, and it's the 10 of spades. It pairs the board, and now we can be beat by a full house, but this isn't going to be stopping us from trying to get value out of our hand. We did check the turn, so he might not believe we have a good hand. We bet 40, and he basically snap calls. This is usually a good sign, as he probably doesn't have the made flush or the boat, and getting a little sticky because he doesn't want to fold his 2 pairs or something like that. I table the nines, and he starts to shuffle his cards in his hand while staring at the board. At this point, I know I've won the hand, and he tables queen jack. We take this down. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, make sure to smash that like button. And if you want to come along for my journey, then hit subscribe to be a part of the KN Poker Squad as we try and navigate on the felt. Oh, and make sure to hit that bell notification so you can get the latest and greatest straight hot off the press. Now let's get back to the hands. We finally get called for the 2-3-5 game and take our chips over to the new table. I don't buy in for any more since I have around 800 in the rack, and I think that's enough to splash around in this game. First hand we get involved in is when we are in the big blind. Under the gun limps in, hijack min pops it to 10, button calls, and for only 5 more, I'm not folding. And neither is the under the gun limper. We are going 4 ways to a flop, and we flop absolute gin. It is king jack 10 rainbow. We have the second nut straight. And I would think that if somebody had ace queen out there, then the pot would be a lot bigger pre-flop. So I'm confident about our hand. Let's start building a pot here. We lead out for a huge bet relative to the size of the pot and slide out 35. The under the gun limper calls and the rest of the field falls out. We're looking for a non-paired board turn card, and the dealer puts up an interesting one. It's the ace of diamonds. This brings in a backdoor diamond draw, but more importantly, there's a one-liner to Broadway now. I mean, it improves our hand to the nuts, but it also allows a bare queen to catch up. If he has a queen, then he's probably betting if we check to him. If he doesn't, he might want to rep it, so I check to him. He fires out 65. I don't think a check raise here is the correct play since he'll be folding out a lot of 1 pair and weak 2 pair hands that I want to keep in. And a check raise is a super strong play. It's almost as if I'll be playing my hand face up. I've already underrep my hand to get value, so I want to continue that story. We make the call and go to a river card, which is a 9. If he does have hands like 2 pair, then it might be hard for him to fold here. So I run the good old stop and go and bet out 150. I'm trying to make it feel like a bluff. Hopefully he thinks the same as he makes the call. I table my hand proudly, and he shows the same hand. He has queen 9 as well. Why would he not raise the river? He couldn't be beat. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it is what it is. Let's chop this pot up. Next hand we pick up is jack 10 of diamonds in the hijack. It gets folded to us, and we open raise to 15. Cutoff button and big blind all call. I didn't think we would be getting this much action. I was thinking we would be going against, like 1 player in the blinds, but now it's 4 ways to the flop, and the flop is king 9-8 with a couple of hearts. Decent flop as we have an open-ended straight draw. There is a possibility that a couple of our outs are no longer outs, as the queen and 7 of hearts will complete a flush. Big blind checks, and if it was just heads up, I'm unloading the clip for 2 barrels minimum. but there are two other players behind us and we have to tread carefully multi-way. We check, cutoff checks, and the button places a bet of 40. Big blind calls, and with a good draw, let's see a turn card. We call and the cutoff folds. The turn comes out and it's the 6 of diamonds. Not a good card as the king is still top pair, and it doesn't scare the button from wanting to put out another value bet on the turn. Big blind checks once again, and I don't want to allow the button to unload a huge bet like 120 or more, because then it's going to be hard for us to call since we're out of position and would have to act first on the river. So I rarely do this, but this opponent I thought would allow me to do it. I fire out a super small blocker bet of 20. I was thinking that he wouldn't be able to raise unless he had a minimum of like 2 pairs. He took a look at that bet and scoffed. He then proceeded to put in a raise to 70. Big blind folds, and now I don't think he has a flush draw or any type of drawing hand really. I put him on a king, maybe 2 pair with a king 9 or 9-8. This means that all my outs are live, and if he does have a good value hand, I might be able to get there on the river and get paid off. This bet is only 50 more, which gives us amazing odds. So with this said, we make the call and hope for a queen or 7. And the dealer gives us a 4 of diamonds. I think for a bit if this is worth bluffing on, and it's definitely not. So I check and he checks back. We're never good here with just jack high. He confirms that by showing king queen. It would have been really nice to hit the queen. Definitely would have gotten lots of money out of him. So far, I've had some pretty good hands, so now it's time to play some trash. We pick up 8-4 of diamonds in the big blind, another gun raises to 15, button calls, and we make the call for only $10 more. 3 raise to a flop of 6-5-4 with 2 spades and a diamond. Not the best flop, but not the worst either. We check, under the gun checks, and the button bets 20. We call hoping to pick up a 4, 7, another diamond, or possibly an 8. The turn is the 6 of diamonds. It does give us the backdoor diamond draw and actually a gut shot straight flush draw too. We check and he bets 40. I guess picking up this draw, there's no folding now. We call the 40 and go to a river. The river is another 6. This technically gives us a full house. We check and he fires out another bet of 100 this time. I feel he has some sort of overpair, maybe 7s through 10s. It's doubtful he's taking this line with just a 5, which still beats us anyways. The river is usually a super underbluff spot here, so the right move is just to fold. If he 3-barrel bluffed us, then so be it. We fold. Let's try and get back into winning pots with this next hand. There's an early position limp, and we look down at queen 9 of spades in the cutoff and raise to 15. Button calls and the limper calls. The flop is 10-9-4 with 2 clubs. We pick up a pair and a weird backdoor straight draw. Limper checks, and I think a check here is best. We could bet to thin the field and get the button out so that we have position for the rest of the hand, but this board, basically hits his calling range on the button, and he's going to continue too many times for a bet on the turn to be profitable, so we check. The button checks as well, so we're going 3 ways to a turn, which is the king of diamonds. Limper checks again, and now this is a spot where a bet is nice since we're going to have a lot of kings in our range, and we block the obvious straight draw that hit by having a queen. We still have a pair, and really the only person I'm worried about is the button, and he already checked when given the opportunity to bet on the flop. So if he didn't hit a king, then I think we're all good. We bet 25, and the button does indeed call the bet. The limper bows out, and we're going heads up to a river, which is a queen. This gives us 2 pair, but it also brings, the one-liner to the straight. He could easily be holding a jack here, but it's pretty weak just to check to him and have him take down the pot here with a medium-sized bet. So I choose to fire out 30. It works as a blocker bet as well as a value bet. If he wants to call off light with, just a king, he quickly snap raises to 100 straight. We just fold, and he's nice enough to show the ace jack as he hit the gut shot on us. We didn't win that last hand, but we also didn't lose, so I guess that's a good thing. I still want to take down a pot because it just feels like ages since we actually won one. In real time, it was probably about 3 to 4 hours since the pocket 9s win. Anyways, we're in the cutoff with mixed marriage. There's 1 limper and the hijack raises to 15. If we were suited, then this is a good spot to 3-bet. We block some super premium hands, and it plays well post-flop in position, but we aren't suited, and the guy to our right is relatively tight, so we just call. The big blind and the limper call as well, 4 ways to the flop, and it's a pretty good one. It's king 7-5 with a couple of diamonds. We flop top pair with a good kicker. The limper and the hijack both check, and there's only the button behind me. I think we have the best hand here because if the button had a hand like ace king, then he probably would have put in the 3-bet pre-flop. I guess it definitely is possible that someone is slow playing a set of 7s or 5s, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We bet 35, button folds, and only the big blind calls. This is a good spot to be in since we'll have position for the rest of the hand against a big blind defending range, which is relatively wide. The turn is kind of a bad card for us. It's the ace of clubs. He checks, and since I don't think he has ace king, he could still have a hand like ace 7, ace 5, or possibly an ace with 2 diamonds. All those hands make sense, but if he has a weaker king or maybe a straight draw, then I want him to pay for it. So we bet 45. Kind of a small bet, but I think it's big enough to get what we want out of it. He quickly calls, and we're going heads up to a river, and the river is an 8. He checks, and now I check behind because he can have an ace with 2 diamonds in his hand that takes this line of play. Not sure if he's calling 3 streets of value with just a weaker king, and he's obviously not calling with a miss flush or a miss straight. He shows first, and he tables 8-6 off for the miss open ender and hitting a pair on the river. We table the winner and finally take a pot down. I forgot to hit the record button, so you're missing some of the action pre-flop here. But we have pocket kings once again, this time in the small blind. There's 1 limp in early position. The hijack raises to 15. Button 3 bets to 45. I cannot believe the situation we're in. I don't want to give too much away to my opponents, but I don't want to just sit there and waste their time. We put in the 4 bet to 75. It's a min raise since we want to isolate the button here. With this type of hand, if we're going to be getting a lot of money in pre-flop, we only want to go against 1 player, but I'm fully prepared to go all in against 2 players. The hijack has about 250 behind, and the button has a little less than that. Hijack decides that he wants to play for all of it, so he goes all in, and the button surprisingly folds. And I say surprisingly because he says he has ace king after we make the obvious call. Our opponent just wants to show his hand before showdown, and he tables pocket queens. We're just needing to dodge a queen. We go to a run out of 8-10 jack, 10-5. We table the winner and scoop a nice pot. Okay, mystery hand reveal time. Let's recap the hand and get into it. There are 2 limpers, and we raise to 16 with pocket kings. Small blind calls, hijack calls. 3 ways to the flop of queen 10 deuce rainbow. Good flop for us. They check. We place the C bet of 45. Small blind calls, hijack folds. The dealer puts out the turn card, which is the jack of spades. Kind of a scary card, but doubtful he has ace king for the straight because he would have most likely re-raised us pre-flop. Small blind checks once again, and I look at his stack. He only has about 80 left. Let's get it all in. We have an overpair. Even if we're behind, we still have outs. We ship it in. He makes the call. The river is a blank. It's the deuce of hearts. I say kings. And what does he show? A, pocket 10s. B, king jack. C, pocket deuces. Or D, queen jack. The correct answer is A, pocket 10s. It always stings a little when someone hits a set on you when you have an overpair because it's hard to get away from it. But I'm sure I've done this same thing to many opponents, so I'll just take my loss here and thank my lucky stars. This wasn't for more money. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. Till next time, don't be ducking it. Run like Usain Bolt. I'll see you on the next one.